have with me Will Gibson, and we're going to be talking about relevancy. Will, talk to us a little bit about where you're calling from and what you're up to.
Sure. Well, I'm in my city of Newcastle in the UK, which, if anyone out there is a soccer fan, then don't at me for my choice of soccer team. It's my city after all. And so I'm here today to talk about one of the blogs that we're going to put out there. But really, this blog is about relevancy, and it's about why a lot of telcos are so relevant that they're actually the same and they're not standing out. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of unpack some of the themes. I've got some top tips as to things you can do to make yourself different and stand out and be very relevant with your customers.
And Will, we've worked together for almost 20 years. Talk to me a little bit about, share with the audience your telco experience, the brands you've worked on, because I think that brings some credibility in some of the recommendations you're going to make.
Sure, I started in the year 2000s in telco with Vodafone here in the UK, which is one of the big UK telecom success stories. And quickly I moved internationally with Vodafone, and I used to help guide and advise their partner markets around the world. So I've actually visited more than 79 countries. And I've worked in big projects with, firstly, some of Vodafone partners in countries like Russia, Ukraine, Malaysia, Kenya. And from then, I've moved around the industry, as a lot of us do, and I've been on a lot of different sides of the fence, so to speak, in telecoms. I've been inside a carrier. I worked in Southeast Asia for BlackBerry for a number of years, really when BlackBerry was a religion in countries like India and Indonesia, and BBM was just something adopted by millions and millions of people, and it was very, very exciting. I've then ran telecom chains across the Caribbean, built them, merged them, built retail stores. And now I'm on the vendor side of the fence and have been for 10 years. I'm a managing executive of Maplewave, and I look after our amplifier division, which is using that experience that I've had around the world and in different telcos, and really helping bring that to our clients around the world so that they can, avoid some pitfalls that I've seen a lot of different people make, and also ingest that global best practice that we can bring.
Great. And then how do we connect? I think you're our client.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember, Jim. I ran an RFP in the Caribbean. I needed some help to design a concept, and I think, if I remember rightly, you guys came late into the process. You were recommended by somebody, and I remember distinctly the thud factor of your proposal landing, and it was just so well researched. The detail and the background that you guys had gone into it really stood out. And then as we went through, obviously, the RFP process, and you guys were awarded the project, we did that project together. And man, that was an exciting retail transformation of note. We gave Flo in the Caribbean stores in Kingston, Jamaica, that would not look out of place in Miami Beach. And what a great project. So a lot of memories there. I think that was 12 or so years ago.
Yeah, and looking out the window with a lot of snow, it was actually great from a standpoint of travel, being able to go to a warm climate in December.
Yeah.
So this blog that you've written, it's about relevancy. You mentioned the sameness in telcos. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think if you go to most telcos around the world, you'll see a lot of very similar things. You'll see some wood tables, you'll see some devices, you'll see some things around the perimeter and some accessories here and there. And every wireless operator just tends to do the same things, and they've all morphed towards each other. And particularly I find within an individual country, there's very little differentiation whether you've got two principal telcos or three or four. They're all pretty much the same. And it's very transactional and it's very samey and it's just dull. So I'm on a bit of a personal quest to make the telecoms industry a little bit more exciting, a little bit more relevant to what the customers want, and just a little bit more beautiful, if that makes sense.
Mm. Well, it's interesting that you talk about the sameness. What is driving that? Like, what is the dynamics that are driving our audience to follow the leader, if you like, that safety in numbers, or safety in consistencies, or safety in matching the competition? What is it driving that?
Yeah, I mean, I think globally, there's a lot of things driven by the globality of some of the product sets that we've got. Every telco has the Apple 1 meter bay table and the Samsung 1 meter bay, and obviously there's economics driving that and consistency because Apple and Samsung want their brands to be presented in a certain way, and then it's an area of the store where the telcos can then get a lot of investment. So there's that is driving this sameness, but also in a market, I find that all of the operators just tend to copy each other. If one of them does stick their neck above the parapet and do something a little bit different, a little bit new, then you can bet that within 6 months somebody else has done the same. So over a kind of a 20-year period, if you think is that what telco's really been, um, it's everybody's just morphed into being the same, and very few look outside of their own country for new ideas and new ways of working. And that's a shame, I think, particularly when we're in a very global world from a communication standpoint. We're just not from a telecom innovation standpoint.
Hmm. And what's when you look at that sameness and the lack of differentiation, you could argue that's safe to play there. Is there any performance implications that telco should be paying attention to with the sameness? They're presenting to their management team wanting change, and they're saying why the change, like what is the ROI in this change, or why is this relevant to us? Why spend that money in making those changes? Thoughts there, and also, you know, the human factor. AI is playing a really, really important role in back of house efficiencies in the banking industry and the telco, being able to customize things, personalize things,
Mm.
remove the inefficiencies. But has it impacted the human side, the customer facing side, and what are those risks? So two things: risk of not changing and transforming, and then the risk of AI. Could you kind of elaborate on those?
Yeah, I mean, I think quite rightly, there's a lot of CFOs and boards that are very wary of putting big numbers of investment behind a product set, particularly in consumer, that is very, very mature. And because there's this lack of ingenuity, typically it tends to be one telco will think they're behind the competition in a certain way, and then they'll go and get some budget and they'll go and spend it. And it doesn't move the needle all that much, because the fact that all of these telcos present themselves in the same way mean that they're very open to churn, that customers are just moving from one to the other based on the attractiveness of the offer at that time when they're ready to switch, if they're in a postpaid market. Or if they're in a prepaid market, there's probably some movement in price there that is moving that and helping them switch. So I think that the fact that they're not really understanding what telecoms has become in consumer, it is commoditized. It is very easy for people to go and pick things up online. But they're forgetting the fact, and this is the second part of the question where the human piece comes in, they're forgetting the fact that there's huge swathes of populations where these products are still difficult. And they become more difficult when you start to converge the fixed line and the cable and the TV and the fiber products with the wireless. And then you start to introduce bundles and bonuses and discounts and so on. There's huge swathes of the population that get very bamboozled by all of that. So telcos haven't really understood what the customer is looking for. We mentioned before, people buy from people they like. People go to retail stores to seek out a human because they're not sure. They want some advice. They want some guidance. And this is where they haven't moved the needle on the human side of things. There's still massive training gaps in a lot of telcos around the world. And I think once a telco really understands what their consumer base is looking for, and the telco then makes not only the design changes, but the operational changes and the people changes that go along with that, then you can start to win. Otherwise, you ask yourself the question, have we just upgraded the furniture, or have we also upgraded the humans? And you need to do both.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, when you look at it, we call it silent attrition. Most telcos are focused on the bundle, selling the consumer the total package. But the consumers actually have a lack of trust in telcos. They feel that they're being sold, they're being controlled. And most recently, we've seen that a lot of regulators have forced telcos to decouple their programming and selling these bundles, and giving more flexibility to the consumer. And that just underlines kind of this battle between the consumer and the telcos on who has control in the relationship. And we're definitely seeing a pivot towards the consumer having greater control. How are the telcos responding to that?
I mean, a lot of them are doubling down just on, if they're forced to move their bundles apart, they're just doubling down on price. And that's a road to the bottom. It's not going to lead anywhere. So it's really trying to understand the human need behind all of this. In that the telco wants to sell the bundle, great. The consumer might find the bundle attractive, sure, but there might be specific reasons why. There's some infrastructure in that customer's neighborhood, which means the bundle or part of the bundle may not be possible. There's often a timing reason. So there might be a commitment with one provider to fiber and a commitment to another provider to wireless, and the two are not in sync. And this is where the telcos haven't yet grasped the art of the conversation of finding all of that out. And it's a shame. Instead, the telcos are doubling down on more and more marketing efforts and more gimmicks and this and that, and they're not really getting to the root cause of the issue.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we look at what motivates consumers to build relationships and make purchase decisions, a significant percentage, over 50, 60% are driven emotionally. And then you look at that experience in a telco, it's all product and feature focused. It's not about what it does for you or how it makes you feel. It's, what are the features? And we both know that consumers use a very small fraction of features that technologies provide today. I mean, we use very small amount of features on our mobile devices and our home entertainment. And so we're so focused on features when really the consumer is looking for lifestyle solutions. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It's a great example. Friend of mine who has a young family visited a telco store here in the UK a couple of months ago, and he told me about his experience. He and his wife were shopping. They've got a 2-year-old daughter, and this particular telco had a big cartoon character in store. So they gravitated towards this cartoon character, and the daughter's having a lovely time and they're having fun, etc. So great, well done, telco, job one. You've got some footfall into the store. The advisor who approached my friend the male, the dad of the family, the situation. What they said to him was, "Can I interest you in our monthly broadband?" And first of all, I mean, that's just an awful closed question anyway, and it's very easy just to be no. But they absolutely missed an opportunity. My friend would not want to buy from this particular telco. They're quite TV heavy, very good TV product. Because he's a cord cutter and he streams a lot of things. If they'd only spent some time building rapport with the family, using that opportunity of the little girl and the cartoon character, and then got to talk to my friend's wife, who would love to buy from this particular telco. Why? Because she cannot stand it when they're watching TV and they get that circle and there's buffering and, he's tinkering away with his streaming bits and doing that. They could have sold to her and he might have put up a fight and they might have had an argument about it, but she would have won. Happy wife, happy life. And it would have been a great experience. But they're not wired that way to think about that, the bigger picture. And it's a shame.
And who do you think that there's telcos out there that are actually doing it right?
Absolutely. I'm privileged to work with some great partners, and I have some long-standing clients all around the world that are doing some very, very good things. I don't work with this particular telco, but one that stands out that I put forward as an example is EE in the UK, who was formerly the old kind of British telecom entity. Have gone through various different guises over the years. They've really invested a lot in a retail first strategy. They've allowed stores to become somewhere where you can explore, where you can sit down. Most telcos you go in and you are lucky if you get what I would describe as a little school chair stool that my 3-year-old daughter will sit on when she goes to kindergarten. EE have actually comfortable, low sofas and lounges that older people can use. They've got some nice smaller tables in different parts of the store where you can have a conversation and you can actually check out with your advisor there using a laptop rather than having to go the back of the store, stand at the desk at the fixed desk PC while they do this forever and kind of pretend like they're checking you in at a hotel for 45 minutes. So there are brands that are doing it very, very well. EE is a great example that I definitely hold up around the world.
So when you're looking at solving the problem, you in your blog you talk about the 6 strategies. Can you walk us through those 6 strategies?
Absolutely. I think the first part of that strategy is to really have yourself seen by experts and have an independent assessment of what you are doing and what you are doing well and what you are doing wrong. And this is where we can come in, bit of a shameless plug, JP. SLD and Maplewave are coming to market with a joint CX audit approach where we can absolutely walk a mile in your shoes and show you where some of the areas you're not really lighting the dial up for your customers, for sure. I think too many telcos try to play on their own egos and solve their problems themselves, which again leads them to what's happening in my country. What are my competitors doing? What do I need to copy? Rather than what is working in different parts of the world and what can I bring in and ingest? And what are these industry experts who have seen way more than me? What can they help us with? So I think that independent kind of audit assessment benchmark is something that is the first step. And then looking around, redesigning for your culture. And that's not just redesigning your physicality, it's redesigning your world, your people, your universe, how your people behave, how your stores look, yes, how the brand is projected, yes, but put your culture and how you want to behave at the center of that. Then, particularly in a retail setting, but also in an online setting, is breaking this very transactional and queue-based hierarchy. You don't need permission and a ticket to go and sit down in a store. You might want to be able to just wander around and browse. You might leave after that and come back 2 weeks later. That's okay. How many telcos allow people to do that? You might get through that browsing experience and then decide you want to go and talk to somebody off the cuff because you've seen something. Okay, allow that. So don't make it too rigid. A lot of telcos do have this very kind of queue podium approach where it's, what are you here for? Okay, you're number 17 in line. It's off-putting. I want to look at you first. The fourth thing is rewiring this transactional piece, which is not necessarily also from the systems and getting things out and through the systems. It's transactions in that your staff are wired to want the transaction and want this particular sale to happen because they're going to get the benefit from it. And that is something in this online world. If I want something, I can click and I can get it. I'm in your store. I'm probably wanting something more than just grabbing something off a shelf. And in order to do that, this is the fifth thing, you've got to replace that very scripted way in a set of behaviors for your staff that really drive their capability. Human, like I said before, human to human behavior is complex, is nuanced. How many, often young, retail advisors are very, very good at building relationships with people, building rapport with people? It's tough. Do you teach them that? Not a lot. Do. And then the last one is making sure that what you're going to reward is what you want to receive. Your brand promise must be front and center with your KPIs. You want people to use your app and get greater value and be able to receive rewards and benefits by, once they've got your products and services, continually having that digital relationship with you. If that's something you want, incentivize it. I still am yet to see many telcos who will incentivize their retail staff in a store to A, download the self-care app, and B, teach them so that they have that relationship post the visit. So I think if you can do all of those things, you're well on the way to completely rewiring your business for 2030 and beyond, in the way the customer of today wants to interact with you.
So when you look at those 6 strategies, building on the analysis, finding out where those gaps are, gaining alignment internally with the audience, and then aligning that with the customer needs, and then understanding how those customers' needs need to be met from a customer service and experience standpoint. Those are all great strategies. But where does the telcos get tripped up? Where do they struggle? I mean, some of this is easy. You build a store, you roll it out to 300 locations. Yes, it's capital intensive, but it's a cookie cutter model. Those things are easy. Where is it that the telcos have significant challenges in delivering that experience?
The bit they significantly underinvest in is the bit they claim to be very good at, employers of choice and so on. And actually they're not very good at. And that is creating the human to behave in the way that they want their brand to be seen. And, the lack of training, they'll open the 300 stores. They'll go on a big recruitment drive. They'll recruit some very eager people, but eager people who have a lot to learn about our industry. First of all, you've got a very complex product set. Secondly, you've got a very complex IT stack to be able to deal with that product set. And then, and this is the problem of the telcos because they only deal with this and then, sometimes they don't even think about the and then, which is how is the human going to bring their brand to life sell to the customer, advise the customer, be their teacher, be their hero. They don't focus on that. And it's a crying shame. And the telcos that do put their people first often will win in their markets because it is felt.
So we're just wrapping up. We've got a couple more minutes. When you look at the overall experience telcos and the lack, you're highlighting the lack of differentiation. You've got 5 strategies to help them get back on track. What is that one emotion that we want to own? If I'm a telco operator, and I wanted to distill that experience into one emotional factor, what would be that emotion that we would want to own?
It's an interesting question, actually. You've thrown me a bit of a curveball, JP. We've obviously, we've done a little bit of prep here. We've got the podcast moving. We know what we want to talk about. This one's really interesting, and I'm really pleased you've asked it, because I'm going to give you the word: belonging.
Wow.
We are tribal creatures, humans, and we want a sense of belonging with a brand. And when telcos open up that 300 store cookie cutters with the queue podium at the front, and the automatic transactional customer journeys, and the staff that are really robotic and aren't really trained on how to be a human, you're not necessarily giving somebody a sense of belonging. And that's what the customer wants. Like, why am I with your brand? Why am I with the red band versus the blue brand versus the yellow brand? I want to be part of that tribe. I want to feel connected in there. And that is something that I think telcos really need to think about, how they're cultivating that experience, not only physically and in retail and on the high street, but also in the digital experiences as well. A sense of belonging with you is what your customers want.
Well, that's great. That's great. Actually, it's a book I wrote 12 years ago, Ahead of the Curve. Will, thank you very much. I really enjoyed your thoughts and conversations, and I hope our audience has found some value. Please go to maplewave.com to look at Will's recent blog with a lot of the presentation notes.
Yeah, and you can connect with us both on LinkedIn as well. Head to sld.com for more information as well, and we'll see you on the next podcast. I'm looking forward to that one. And let's make this a regular thing. We'd love to hear from you, some comments, some questions, some thoughts. If you agree with anything inside of here, great. If you disagree, love to hear that as well. I love our community. I love our industry. And I'd love to hear from people who have listened to this. So please do let us know. Drop us a line.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Thanks.